Hello everyone and welcome back to the French Made Easy podcast. This is episode 225, numéro 225. In today's lesson, you will be learning about the mute I or le E muet in French. And don't worry, I'll explain what that is in just a few seconds. Now, as usual, before we start, if you are new to the podcast, welcome. Please make sure that you have your lessons cheat sheet handy so you can see how the words are written while you listen. And after the lesson, head over to the French Made Easy exercise library to practice what you've learned today. You'll find all the links in the episode notes on your podcast platform, and it is free. All right, so let's get started. What is the mute I? So, when French speakers talk at a normal speed, you might notice that some words sound a bit shorter than the way that you first learned them. For example, you may have learned the word petit, that means small, but then you hear French speakers pronounce it and it sounds more like petit, rather than petit. Now, you're going to ask me, why are you learning the full pronunciation of the word if, in fact, French speakers are shortening it? Well, it is always best to learn the standard pronunciation of a word first so that French speakers can understand you correctly. But, and this is exactly why I'm teaching you this episode today, it's also good to know that in everyday spoken French, some words are shortened so you can still recognize those words. Now, that doesn't mean that I want you to do it yourself at the beginner level. For now, you don't need to shorten anything. It's simply useful for you to be able to recognize these different pronunciations so that the words that you know in French don't sound completely unfamiliar in conversation, so you can recognize the words that you know. And then, as you become more confident speaking French, you can start using some of these shortcuts yourself, right? I always say, first you learn the rule, and then when you are comfortable with it, when you're comfortable with the language, you can play around and you can break the rules. But for now, just good to be aware of it, but that doesn't mean you have to do it yourself. Now, one sound, and this is the topic of today's episode, one sound that often disappears in French is the mute I or le E muet. In everyday spoken French, as I was saying, French speakers can take shortcuts, and that particular I, that mute I, can sometimes be dropped. Now, attention, it can be dropped in speech, so it can disappear in speech, but not in writing, right? The I is still very much there in writing. This is not a hard rule, what I'm teaching you today. The slower someone is speaking, the more likely you are to hear that mute I. But in faster everyday French, it's probably more likely to disappear. Now, again, this is not a hard rule. Some people might drop it. Some people might not. And I'm not going to talk too much about this because it gets a little bit more complicated, but it also depends. So whether people drop it or not, it also depends on the letters that are around that mute I. The basic rule, right, is that if the consonants around that mute I are easy to pronounce together, the I is probably more likely to be dropped. But if removing the I makes the word more difficult to pronounce because the consonants just don't go together, we are more likely to keep it. It was just to mention it, but it's not really something you have to remember for now. It's more in case you are wondering why some words we drop it and some words we don't. All right, so let's see some example words that will make a little bit more sense. Sorry, I've been blabbing a little bit. All right, so let's take that word that we've seen before, the word petit. That means small, petit. In everyday speech, you might hear petit. Do you hear the difference? Petit, petit. I've dropped the mute I. Petit, you hear it. Petit, you don't hear it. For example, if I speak slowly and I want to say, I live in a small apartment. J'habite dans un petit appartement. Now, if I say it fast or at a normal speed, j'habite dans un petit appartement. Another one, the word semaine. In everyday speech, you might hear semaine rather than semaine. Do you hear the difference? That means week, by the way. Semaine, semaine. Semaine, semaine. The E has been dropped. An example sentence for you. On part la semaine prochaine. You've heard the E in semaine. I was speaking quite slowly. On part la semaine prochaine. We are leaving next week. You can hear the E in semaine. Now, if I speak fast or if I speak at a normal speed, on part la semaine prochaine. Right? Now you don't hear the E. I've just shortened it. On part la semaine prochaine. So really dropping that mute E is a little shortcut, right? It shortens the word and it helps speech flow a little bit more quickly. Now, it's also very common that that kind of E, the mute E, is dropped in very short words such as je, me, te, le, de. So if you remember one thing is that those 6 words, those very small words, it is very, very common for French speakers to drop the E. So let me give you some example sentences. Number 1, je vais au travail. I'm going to work. I didn't shorten anything. I was speaking quite slowly. Je vais au travail. Now, in fast speech, it becomes je vais au travail. I've dropped the mute E from the word je. Je vais au travail. Do you hear the difference? Je vais au travail. Je vais au travail. Another one. Je te parle. I'm speaking to you. Je te parle. You hear the E in je. In fast speech, je te parle. Je te parle. Je te parle. Tu le connais bien. You know him well. Tu le connais bien. In fast speech, tu le connais bien. I've dropped the E from le. Tu le connais bien. Another one. Je me démaquille. I'm taking off my makeup. Je me démaquille. Je me démaquille. Hear the difference? Je me démaquille. Je me démaquille. The E has been dropped. And final one, pas de problème. No problem. Pas de problème. In fast speech, pas de problème. Pas de problème. Et voilà, that's it for our examples. Now, remember that you don't particularly need to worry about doing this when you speak. I'm only teaching you this lesson so you are aware of it. You're aware of something that French speakers do at a fast speech. So it's useful for you at the beginner level to be able to recognize these shorter pronunciations when you hear them. So when you hear je vais, you know that it actually means je vais, right? And you're not wondering what new verb or word it is. All right, so that's it for today's episode. Don't forget to download your free lessons cheat sheet and complete the exercises in the French Made Easy exercise library. You will find all the links in the episode notes. It is free. Thank you so much for listening and I will chat with you next week. À la semaine prochaine. Bientôt. Bye. Before you go, let me ask you something. Do you feel like you kind of know French, but when it comes to actually speaking, you freeze? If that's you, I made something just for you. It's called the French Fluency Gap Guide. And inside, you'll discover the 5 fluency pillars every French learner needs. You see exactly where you're on track, where you're stuck, and what to focus on next. It's completely free and you can get it right now. You'll find the link waiting for you in the show notes.